We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And we are back this week with something that's not quite MCU. Probably not MCU, but Marvel related. And we're going to be covering Spider-Noir, which I guess is the best way to say it. But anyway, we'll be covering all things Spider-Noir this week. So make sure that you have watched it, or you will be getting spoilers, and that would be unfortunate. So this is your final spoiler warning. If you have not yet watched all 8 episodes, we will be discussing the show as a whole. So make sure that you do that and then come back to our episode. With all that being said, Katie, I have one question to you before you give your initial reactions. Did you watch it in black and white, or did you watch it in color?
Black and white.
Okay, cool. Me too. I just wasn't sure.
I feel like you couldn't watch it in color. Like, it just felt wrong.
Right. Like, I feel like it was like, oh, you can watch it in color, but they wanted you to watch it in black and white.
Yeah, and I just feel like to stay true to the character, I had to watch it in black and white. Also, okay, this is going to end up being, it's not a criticism. It's a criticism of my attention span, if I'm going to be honest. But it very much played homage to older style shows set during the time period in which it was set, and the shows that were coming out during that time period. And I would know because, and T would know as well, because our grandfather used to watch a million of these shows on reruns. And so I do fully know. It does play amazing homage. However, it is a very slowed down show.
Yeah.
Now, I thought regardless, that being said, it needed to be in black and white. This type of show, like, they really did an amazing job pulling us back from 2026 and taking us back into, the 19 whatevers. But, like, it definitely was slower paced, long episodes of a slow pace.
Yeah, it definitely, like, was giving old-timey detective, like, it was like feeding you the clues, and it was giving you the time to, like, intellectually be like putting them together, whereas I feel like TV now is so much more fast-paced. It's like boom 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 boom, and you barely have the time to like register an Easter egg or register a clue before they're on to the next piece or the next dialogue or the next set piece or whatever it might be. But yeah, you can definitely feel that they were hearkening back to a different time, both stylistically in the way that it was the black and white, but also then the way that it was paced throughout the entirety of the show.
Yeah. Because I'll be honest, like, had this been made in a 2026 version of the show, I think it would have maybe been a total of 2 or 3 episodes. I don't think it would have taken nearly as long as it did. However, it's good. And again, I think that criticism is more of my own attention span and inability to sometimes be able to sit and watch. I found that there were times, because I was doing it while I'd be multitasking, that I had to go back because I was like, honestly, this scene was so long that I missed actually everything that happened because I just made an assumption based off the beginning of the scene, because that's we are used to such fast pace and things being almost over explained, and I think that's a whole phenomenon that like has been going on about over explaining things because people are actually using like
The
other
dual
devices
screens?
during yeah. So they're actually like dumbing down TV essentially, which I think is so interesting. But that's not normally my problem. I'm actually just normally multitasking, so I'm not like paying full attention. But I would actually have to go back sometimes and just be like, hold on, because I missed this part and now I'm not following what is going on next. Like, I don't know why he's doing this. And don't even get me started on names, guys. I was fighting for my life to remember names. I was literally like, now who is this guy? And I was also really distracted by Mad Eye Moody the entire time.
Yeah, that part was tough for me because I just kept seeing him as Mad Eye.
Yeah.
And he was
Or if
great.
you're not watching, you just hear him. And I'm like,
yeah. He was incredible. Like, he was such a good character. And I genuinely was like, I know you're evil, but I kind of love you. Like, just the way that he moves through the world, I just was like, I find you endlessly entertaining.
Yes.
And I was very sad when he, met his end. But he was great. I think overall, it was weird. And I say that with like a lot of love. Like, I watched it before Katie and I texted her and I was like, so it's weird, but it's like good weird. And like, I just keep thinking about like Nicolas Cage being on the bed in like some of the later episodes, just like doing his weird like spider with the leg up thing and like some of the weird like ticks that he would do. And I was like, this is such a different take on on a character who we've seen so many times, whether that's through animation or through the many different live action versions that we've seen and debated about. This is so wildly different, and I really liked it for that reason. I think it was kind of a breath of fresh air, and don't get me wrong, like, I love the traditional Spider-Man stories, like that's what we grew up on, but I think when you can take a fresh perspective on a character like that, and I know it's obviously not like Peter Parker in the way that we are used to Peter Parker, but still it's a Spider-Man. I think when you can do that, it just kind of breathes new life into, again, like a character that we've seen so many times.
I agree, and I actually don't even think it was just him. I think it was the story as a whole and the villains. Because I found myself really getting engrossed a lot more into it as the villains were. I'm using villains very loosely with the air quotations here because
there's really only one.
Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. And so, like, it's not fair exactly to be like, it's very much, and actually we had an Electro, but like very much the Electro route of like, he kind of isn't inherently a bad guy. It just kind of goes south for him and bad decisions start to be made the second he has powers. Okay. But, as they start to pop up, I found myself more and more intrigued because the story in which they tell how not only they're getting their powers, but then how they're connected to the spider. Mm-hmm. And obviously, who we're following, Ben Reilly, throughout the entire show. I thought that added such a different dimension. And don't get me wrong, like, Spider-Man obviously has all these foes in all iterations, or I should say all iterations, but in especially his main iteration in the comics and stuff. That's the point. But I think it's so interesting to see how they're connected in a different way and almost made them more of a sympathetic. Again, I don't like saying villain or villains because I don't really entirely think they are, but it really changed the tone, I think, of what we're used to. And even when we were going into the show, of what we were kind of anticipating when it came to these villains popping up.
Yeah, I had to laugh because the super soldier serum and like super soldier experimentation continues to haunt the narrative. And I just was cackling that was
I was kind of shocked they were allowed to mention it.
But if you think about it, they didn't mention it was World War I, not World War II. So that's part of it. And two, they didn't actually mention anything specific other than they were trying to build super soldiers.
Yeah.
But I was like, I am shocked because I felt like going into it, the expectation was that it was going to be so far removed from the MCU, and by and large it was, but that was one little piece that I was like, what? I cannot believe that of all the pieces they're going to pull in, it was this one, and I was cackling.
I liked it because I thought it made sense.
Oh, it totally did.
Otherwise, I think I would have been really thrown off onto why they were doing this level of experimentation on the soldiers.
Yeah.
So I think it made sense to be able to say, like, I mean, does it haunt the narrative? Because theoretically, this takes place before even Captain America. This shows the very early throes of that battle to create the perfect soldier.
Yeah.
And the very clear failures they had in the meantime. I mean, the spider thing.
No, I don't want to talk about it. Horrifying, like nightmare fuel.
No, because I had to like. Now, guys, I have arachnophobia. Okay. And there was a part of me that had to just see it and understand it. So I physically had to pause the screen to understand what was happening to the body because I was like, what? And so I had paused it, but then the jump scare of his face happened. And I was like, now what in the world? Like, I was like, absolutely not. I am so good. No. But like, it is very interesting to have pulled that aspect in, and you see, I loved how they also gave these stories then to, again, the villains, but not really, and that there was like more to it than just like what we know their accidents to have been or what we've seen their accidents to have been. This was all deeper than all of that, and I was like, now that is actually so interesting. I love when a show gets very into the science of things and is able to tell the story cohesively because of it. And is it just like this and then this weird science thing and this? Like, no, me as a dumb viewer who doesn't understand certain science things, I understood what we were doing and how all of this played together. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, I loved that, and this kind of gets into what you were saying about the villains not really being villains, because in reality, they were victims. They were prisoners of war who were experimented on against their will, and then they were manipulated. That's why I said there was really only one villain, and that's Silvermane. They were manipulated by Silvermane, who used, whether it was their, lack of resources or whatever it might be, to offer up something that they wanted to be in his employ. And I thought that was so brilliant, because throughout the show, you learn their backstory, you learn, why or how this happened to them, that they were seeking treatment because they knew they were getting sicker. Their back's up against a wall, and they're like, you know what? I might as well get my due while I'm still alive. And that's where Silvermane came in with that manipulation. And so you're right, like, other than Megawatt, who really just ended up being a mega jerk, like everybody else, especially, Lonnie and, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting Sandman's real name, Flint.
I was trying to think of it too.
I was like, we've seen Sandman so many times.
I know.
Besides, Lonnie and Flint, I think you really feel bad for, because you get this sense that they never really wanted to go down that road. Like, yes, Flint was working for Silvermane, but it was in a bodyguard capacity. Like, he wasn't, muscle for hire in doing some of the more violent things that Silvermane does in order to keep his empire. And, Lonnie didn't want anything to do with it, basically, until Flint kind of recruited him and was like, you might as well get your due. So I loved that, because to your point, you felt so much sympathy for them, because they basically had their backs up against the wall. And that scientist storyline with her son, that was so sad and like kind of crazy and weird. And I loved it. I was like, this is a weird side plot, but like, you feel bad for them, and she genuinely wanted to help them. I like that they kind of subverted the idea of the typical mad scientist who just wants to create power or whatever. Like, she had a true, genuine stake in that, and that was the health of her child.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like how you said that too, because I enjoyed the second he was like, oh, you have a personal stake. I think he even specifically says it, like, you have a personal stake in this, and you lost somebody or it affects somebody or something. I think it made it so much more interesting, because initially when the scientist storyline kind of pops up, you're thinking, what did she do to experiment on these guys that like mutated their gene or whatever, fine. But then you do see that she was sitting here this whole time just trying to be helpful and trying to help them because, one, her son was going through it, and then she found out all these other men from the units that were captured with him were experiencing the exact same thing. Although it's even said, like, they were all going to die anyway.
Yeah.
It was maybe lying dormant, but it was not going to lie dormant forever, and they were all going to die from the mutations that were put inside of their body and the experimentation that they went through. So it is very interesting how they did that route, and I really enjoyed it. I also, kind of doing the comparison, enjoyed how the difference was, they were directly experimented on. Obviously, Ben was not. And he was bitten by an experimented, well, at that point, a mutated individual.
Poor man. Poor man.
But also, yuck.
Gross.
But why that, why it worked for him and why it wasn't working for them and, things like that. So I do really enjoy the story as a whole. And honestly, as things got a little weirder, a little more off kilter, it never felt weird because they also did such a good job of kind of setting the groundwork from the start that you're not really following how weird this is going to get until you're already so into it that you're like, yeah, this got strange. And if I would have started at episode 5 or 6, I would have been really confused on everything. And I don't know how I would have felt about it. But because you got me in slow enough in episodes 1, 2, and 3, I felt a lot better. And that is truly what happened. Like, you're just kind of following this PI around, and he is kind of like skirting some weird stuff with Silvermane and things like that. Like, he's getting himself involved, and there's like the love story and things like that. And then things just start getting weird, but you're already too invested to stop.
Yeah. It's like it feels like prime Nicolas Cage should take something that's like a, again, a very famous, arguably one of the most famous comic book characters of all time, and then be like, how weird is Sony gonna let me make this?
Yeah.
And they let him make it weird, and I kind of loved it for that reason. You're right. Like,
I liked it.
You start out and you're like, okay, this is just him being a PI. You've got some enhanced individuals. That's not abnormal. We have enhanced individuals every day in the MCU. That's literally table stakes at this point. It's literally just how are they enhanced and how did they get their powers is basically the only question. But he took that and was like, actually, let me take the concept of enhanced individuals and make this so weird that you're not going to know what to do with it. But at the end of the day, it stands out, I think, for that reason. And I would be totally open to watching a season 2 of this. It's so... It stands apart, and I love that. And I could just be happy to be like, you know what? Let me just occasionally watch a season of Spider-Noir just for funsies. It has nothing to do with anything else. And that's great.
Honestly, him being or being a variant of Spider-Man, that wasn't even important to me.
No.
We could have just, like, not even had the show about that, and I think I still would have been into it. Like, I do actually think the funny thing is he doesn't spend that much time in the mask, right?
No.
Like, we're seeing the like, I would say 90 to 95% of this show, he is not even in the mask.
Right.
And I still enjoyed it. Like, it had nothing to do with, like, some of the action or things of that nature, because even the action wasn't super, like, because, they're still emulating shows for, like, that are not, here's everything blowing up and here's all this and, like, whatever else. But it is so interesting to me how they managed to pull all of this together in this very, to your point, weird show. I mean, I will say the one thing I struggled with, truly, other than my inability to have an attention span, was I could not get past, or I could not get past just seeing Nick Cage.
Yeah, no,
And I do think, could the character have been done by anybody else in that capacity? No.
Right.
However, the whole time, I just was like, that's just Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Like, that's all. And now listen, guys, I couldn't genuinely tell you the last thing I saw Nick Cage in. Couldn't. I don't know. I know him from I know him from things from when I was younger, but, like, the most recent thing, I didn't even watch this, was the thing he was in with Pedro Pascal. I know the meme.
Right.
But before that, it would literally have been something from when I was a child.
Yeah.
Like,
National Treasure.
National Treasure.
Yeah.
So, like, I have not seen this man. This is not an actor I see regularly. And even so, I still was just watching this and I'm like, that's just Nick Cage.
Yeah. I
That's
feel
it.
like he's like one of those people who has such a mythos around him that it's like, okay, you just are who you are. Like, you transcend, even though he's a really good actor, but his mythos and identity transcends, I think, for me, except for National Treasure, because I didn't really know him in that way when I watched him as a kid, so I can be in that. But whenever I see him now, I'm just like, no, you're just Nick
It's
Cage.
just Nick Cage.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
I will say that's my only issue with it, but like that, again, I don't think you could have gotten somebody to play the role as well.
Right.
Either. Like, he did such a good job in it. And you know what, though? I have to say, the entire cast did an impeccable job. I mean, I don't remember her name, but his secretary was freaking hilarious.
Was amazing.
She carried half of her scenes.
Yeah.
And she's in a room with Nick Cage in half of them.
And Lamorne Morris. Who are incredible. I mean, Winnie the Bish.
I love him.
Absolutely an icon.
You know I love him. But that's my point. Like, she was just carrying it. Obviously, to your point, we had him. We just, like, everybody who was in it just played their role so well.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? You talked about a season 2. They don't know if there'll be a season 2. I mean, Nick Cage has even said, I'd be open to it if there is. But, like, I would watch it.
I really would. Yeah.
I'd be into it.
Honestly, and we kind of talked about this, it wasn't just the Spider-Man piece, though. It was like the way that they brought in some of his most iconic characters, right? I mean, like, you had Sandman, who we've seen multiple times. You had Tombstone. I don't think we've seen Megawatt before. We've seen Electro, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't even think we've seen Silvermane in live action as well. But some of these are such, and we know we're getting Tombstone this summer in the Spider-Man movie, which is exciting. But even then, like, even though we haven't necessarily seen them in live action, all of them, they're some of his most iconic villains. And it was cool to see them in this very different setting where you're like, I know this character, but this version of the character is such a departure from what we've seen in the past. And I love that. So I think they did such a good job of not just doing that with Spider-Man and this particular variant, but also doing it with characters that are, you know, so storied and well loved and well known within his kind of rogues gallery as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's why I think it worked. And also, you were able to bring in so many of these characters and not feel busy either.
Right.
Which I also really enjoyed, because I think, you know, we get the trailers and I think we're all looking at it and we're like, all right. I mean, we knew quite a few of these characters were going to be in it. And we're like, that's a lot for 8 episodes. Yeah. It is. And now, granted, again, the episodes were 45 minutes each, just about. So that's like a lot of content still. But I mean, that's longer than even like our Falcon and Winter Soldier and things like that. But I will say, you know, they made it work very, very well. They never felt like anybody was there just to be there and just to like make an appearance. Like, everybody played a very prominent part and it worked. So, I mean, I gotta say, it was dumb and I liked it.
Yeah. And I also liked, from a storytelling perspective, it wasn't like I feel like you could have gone the route of, you know, a villain per episode, right? Like you kind of did in like some of the, you know, even just like the cartoons, right? Like Spider-Man defeats one villain per episode, and then there's some storylines that you're seeing him grow and change, and some of the romances or friendships or whatever, like those are more long-term storylines that are happening kind of underneath that. I liked that this was very much like, this is one group of, I don't want to call them the villains. We'll call them our enhanced individuals. You have them, you're treating them as a group, not as one, you know, one episode, and he's just the throwaway villain of the episode. And I liked that, because I think you could have very, very easily done that, but instead they decided to tell kind of this more overarching narrative and a more cohesive story. I also loved seeing, you know, you all know I lived in New York for a few years. I loved seeing, old-timey New York. I thought that was great. And the way that they were, leaning into some of the corruption that was going on at that time. I also just think setting it in a time period that we've never really explored, even in the MCU, that time period between World War I and World War II is something that, the earliest MCU piece that we have starts in 1940, 1941. So it was cool to kind of explore enhanced individuals and superheroes in a very different time period and in a society that was in a very different place in the 1930s than it was than in anything else that we've ever explored.
Yeah. No, I mean, all around, I really liked it. I think I don't really like giving Sony kudos, but for the fact that they have done so much with Spider-Man related characters and have missed the mark so many times. Yeah. I'm happy that this was a show that I genuinely enjoyed. Yeah. Like truly, I know we went into it not maybe recently, but initially kind of just being like, why? Yeah. Like, why are we making this show? Whatever. But you know what? It was for funsies. And I can get behind for funsies.
Yeah. I think sometimes one of the things I liked about it too is like sometimes it can be a lot to watch something in the MCU. And I'm saying this as like this is why we have the show. We're avid MCU
as someone who's
fans.
Also watched every single piece of content, so we never have to think about starting over.
Right. But it can be a lot sometimes to have the weight of everything that you've ever watched be on something that you're watching. Like when we go into the theater to watch, I'm going to give a shout out to Doomsday later this year, like potentially the weight of almost 20, what is that? Yeah, almost 20 years worth of content. And even more than that, because they're bringing in characters from, previous iterations. So you're looking at, almost 25 years of content, 26 years, and you're trying to remember where was this character from and where was that character from. And I can tell you right now, I will not be doing a full rewatch because I simply don't have time for that, and I need to keep rewatching other things like off campus. But anyway, point being, it can be a lot to watch with the weight of all of those things. And sometimes it's just really refreshing to watch something like a Spider-Noir or a Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, or heck, even an X-Men 97. Now that has like 4 other seasons, so that's a little bit different, but it's just not the same level of like, now I have to memorize every single detail and I don't remember this character, so I have to research that, or I have to watch 6 other shows or rewatch 6 other shows to get into this before I do that because I don't remember. Sometimes it's just really freeing to be like, you know what? This is a standalone thing, and I can do that without all of the pressure and try to pick out all the Easter eggs that are setting it up for the next thing. I enjoyed that very much. It was freeing. It was liberating.
It was. It was there to just enjoy, and I was cool with just enjoying it. I liked it.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about for Spider-Noir. Katie, is there anything else that you wanted to chat about?
No, I think, and that's the nice thing. We don't have to talk about how does this fit into this and where does it fit into this. I know. The only thing that it maybe brought up was maybe a Miguel mention at the very beginning or a kind of nod. But otherwise, it really stayed within its own confines, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah, it did have like a weird little universe conversation monologue to like start the show that made me very nervous. Yeah. Made me very nervous.
Well, because he was like, somebody asked me what universe this is, and I'm assuming that was probably Miguel.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That part, I was like, no.
I like that he was like, someone asked me, and I was like, that's the only one I know. So
I don't care, buddy. It doesn't matter.
I actually don't care. Yeah.
I love his blasé attitude. He's just like, I literally don't care. Give me a drink.
Yeah.
What a great attitude to go through life with. But yeah, we don't have to cover anything about how it relates to anything else. So I think that is everything related to Spider-Noir. We hope that you guys liked it as well. If you didn't watch it in black and white, you should go back and do it because it's just fun that way. We will be back with future episodes. They'll be taking some time off as we're on vacation. Katie will talk more about that at the close of the show. And last but not least, you can check out our website and our Buy Me a Coffee, both of which are linked in the show notes below.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials, which are also linked in the show notes down below. And as T said, we are going to be on vacation, so we're going to not have a podcast episode next week. No big deal, guys. I know you're going to miss us a lot, but we're going to be relaxing and we both need it desperately for so many reasons. So we will not be having any content coming out. You can obviously keep up with us on socials, though. We will be posting our time on vacation and our fun adventures as we're having them, but we will have some time to relax. And then make sure you guys are coming back because, believe it or not, we're not going to be too far out from covering X-Men 97 Season 2 already, much to my happiness. But that's right around the corner. So make sure you guys are coming back when we get back from our break because there's a lot more content to come this year. And as always, in this case, I guess Sony, but Marvel just blew your minds. So let's talk about it.